The man took a deep breath, turned around, and pushed his girlfriend off the 100-meter cliff. Before she could react, she was impaled by stakes at the bottom. The man built a fire, threw her clothes in, and burned them. But unexpectedly, a few drops of her blood fell onto ants at the cliff's base. The ants, drawn by the smell of blood, crawled onto her body, and their bites caused her to wake up. Although she couldn't see how bad her stomach wound was, she knew that if she didn't act quickly, she would die. She looked around and realized she was in a groove between mountains, her body trapped by the stakes. If she couldn't free herself soon, she knew she was doomed. Just then, she noticed something pink not far away and felt a glimmer of hope. She stretched out her arm, enduring the pain of the wound, and slowly inched closer. After persistent effort, she reached a pair of headphones on the ground. Then, using the headphone cord, she carefully pulled a lighter toward her. By this time, she had started to adjust to the pain. She gathered hay and placed it under a woodpile nearby. Once she was ready, she used the lighter to set the branches on fire. Although the flames hurt, the hope of survival made her feel relieved. After 2.5 hours, the stakes finally began to weaken from the fire. Noticing this, she started to struggle. After a lot of effort, she was free, but she knew her boyfriend might return. Despite her severe injuries, she began to move toward the cliff, inch by inch. As she expected, the 3 men returned to the scene. At the last second, she managed to hide, watching as they appeared shocked to find she was gone. They hadn't thought anyone could survive that fall. The boyfriend quickly realized that even if she survived, she wouldn't get far with her injuries, so they went to the cliff's bottom. This gave her time to prepare her revenge. She grabbed an empty can nearby, poured out the beer, and used a dagger to cut the can, flattening a piece of metal. She tore her shirt in half, lit the dagger with the lighter to disinfect it, and stared at the flame with resolve. Then she turned the knife on her stomach, pressed it to her abdomen, and endured the pain as it cut a fresh wound. She continued cutting small wounds around the original one, shaping them into a petal pattern on her stomach. With no time to lose, while she was still awake, she pulled out the 15-centimeter wooden stick. The wound started bleeding heavily, so she grabbed the iron sheet she had prepared earlier, pierced it with her dagger, and heated it over the fire. When it was hot enough, she pressed it onto her abdomen. As smoke rose from the burn, the woman passed out, with only one thought: survive and take revenge. The next morning, her strong will kept her alive, and she woke up. Checking her stomach, she found that the wound had started to scab overnight, with the eagle pattern from the can imprinted on her skin. It was a sign that she was no longer a helpless victim. She put on a waist guard, gathered her gear, and left the cave. Outside, she took out her binoculars and began scouting for her targets. Soon, she found a man alone, unaware of the disaster awaiting him. She fired, but the rifle's recoil knocked her down. When she looked through the scope again, he had disappeared. She quickly approached his last location and found only blood on the ground, along with a faint blood trail leading away. She followed it until the trail vanished, leaving only a single shoe behind. The man was watching her from the shadows. Meanwhile, he reloaded his gun and silently approached her from behind. The next moment, he fired and knocked her down. He chased her while shooting, but his shoulder injury kept him from aiming accurately, so each shot missed. When he got close, the woman threw her binoculars at a rock, shattering the glass on the ground. He didn't notice and stepped on the shards barefoot, screaming in pain as they cut his foot. Through the agony, he used 2 fingers to pull out the glass shards. Bloodied and knowing he couldn't go on this way, he found transportation to pursue her again. But she was ready. She had waited down the road, sniper rifle in hand. After she took him down, she felt no excitement. She still had 2 more enemies to face. No longer fearing death, she easily took down the larger man who was defenseless near the river. The next day, The last man discovered his friends' bodies in the river, terrified by the deaths of his allies. He rushed back to his villa to hide, unaware that she was already waiting for him